our guests who have joined. We will share this, we are recording, so we will share this recording with our members and also with the community at large. This is our first Occupy Schools event, and our topic for this morning is Parenting Power, Closing the Gap and Building Bridges to Brilliance for Black Families. So those that may be new to Mocha Moms is a national nonprofit organization that uplifts mothers of color through advocacy, support, education, and service. So the Occupy Schools initiative is meant to empower mothers to be active partners in their children's education. So each chapter of Mocha Moms is required to do an Occupy Schools event, which initially it was created for moms to get together and really knowledge share, because there is an education gap between the Black communities, and a lot of it stems from just lack of information, things that we just don't know about. So every year we are supposed to have an event like this where we bring community leaders, educators together to educate our mothers and communities at large about things that are really important for them in navigating their children's education. So we're so grateful to have the speakers that are with us this morning. So, what we're here to do is we're going to share knowledge and strategies from elementary through college, encourage moms to engage, advocate, and support their children's academic success, and also build a stronger network of informed parents. So that our speakers get a sense for who is currently on, can all of our moms that we do have on, if you could just put in the chat the current city and state that you live in, the number of children and their ages, and what's one of your biggest concerns or focus right now as a parent? And I'll give you a minute to do that, just to drop that in the chat. I'll do it myself. Um, if Irene, Dominique, Zoom user, if whoever is on via Zoom, if you can change your Zoom name to your name, that would be helpful. So, concerns, what do I need to do to prepare for kindergarten? Registering for kindergarten, possible need for services. Um, One child, safety, equitable education opportunities, okay, are some of the concerns right now. And we'll continue to drop this in the chat so that as moms continue to join the conversation, that we'll have a sense of what some of the concerns are in the room as we address some of the questions. So thank you to those of you that have shared thus far. Brief agenda. We're a little bit off schedule, but as I said, we will make sure that we are off by 11:30. So I'm speeding through this relatively quickly. Um, so we may do our speaker intros very quickly just so that we can get to the meat and potatoes of the conversation. Our moderator, who is Mocha Irene Lovett, she's a financial professional, author, and community liaison, the program director for all mentees on board, and she's also the community service and fundraising chair for our Mocha Moms Delaware Valley chapter. So I'm going to go ahead and transition it over to her to lead our discussion. You're on mute, Irene.
Good morning. Oh, sorry. Good morning. So good
So
morning, everyone. Our speakers, Aisha. Can you hear me?
yeah,
Yeah. Can you hear me?
your Wi-Fi is going in and out. So you may need to log off and log back on. I'll go ahead and just go through their bios quickly while you get the
Okay.
technology. Okay.
Okay.
So and it's Aisha, huh? Aisha. I'm supposed to be writing it down. Aisha Al Muid.
Yes.
Okay. Is an innovative service driven educational leader and advocate of lifelong learning with 15 years of experience, both traditional and in charter public educational institutions. Her expertise as an early childhood partnership administrator for the School District of Philadelphia's Office of Early Childhood is her current role, in addition to being a mother, wife, daughter, sister, and friend. Thank you so much, Aisha,
Thank you. Thank
for
you.
joining us. We also have Dr. Aaron Bass, who is a visionary leader in education. He founded the Breakthrough Fort Lauderdale, preparing students for college while mentoring future educators. In 2007, he received the prestigious Fisher Fellowship to launch Kip Dubois Collegiate Academy, which achieved a 95% college matriculation rate. He later served as an instructor and consultant to the Philadelphia Eagles and currently leads Eastside Charter School in Delaware, where under his leadership, student achievement has exceeded state averages and over $25 million has been raised for a groundbreaking STEM hub. Thank you so much for being here with us this morning, Dr. Bass. Next, we have Dr. Nicole Gittens, who has been an educator for more than 27 years. This is her second year as the Chief Academic Officer at Capital City PCS. She moved to DC after a long career in education in the Boston area. And she attended undergrad at Temple University. She double majored in finance and business law. Thank you for being with us this morning, Dr. Nicole Gittens. Dr. Malika Savoy is an educational and systems leader committed to equipping every student with cognitive tools and rich experiences to foster intellectual growth. With over 2 decades of service, her career spans every instructional level from teacher, academic coach, administrator, principal, assistant, superintendent, and district leader. She is passionate about student outcomes, equitable access, and ensuring students in marginalized communities receive high quality education. So happy to have you with us this morning, Dr. Malika Savoy. All right. Are we good, Irene? Okay. I will go ahead and pass it back to you. And I'm just going to stop sharing so that we can actually see our speakers since this is just a slide.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So we are going to start with our discussion questions, and the first set of discussion questions are going to surround pre-K up to middle school. So I want to first ask, what advice would you give parents whose children are entering pre-K or kindergarten to help build a strong foundation?
Is it just anybody or we just
Yes. So we can
okay?
start with you, Aisha.
Aisha, yes, thank
Aisha,
you
I'm
so
so
much. It's
sorry.
fine. It's okay. So yes, since we're pre-K, and I'll let everyone know, I saw a couple of the questions in the chat. My area of expertise is the preschool 3 to 5 year olds. And one of the things that we are really working towards this year and have been since post-COVID, re-engaging parents, lifting the parent partnership piece, as well as encouraging parents to just be involved any way that they can with their child's educational institution. And one way initially is building those relationships, being that partner, volunteering, being involved any way that you can so that you can actually get a perspective of the educational institution holistically, how it runs from a parent perspective, as well as learning about the curriculum, other parents, who else is involved in the community that your child is now a part of, not just your child, but also your family.
Thank you for that insight. Dr. Nicole, would you like to?
Sure. I would just add to that, it really does depend on what size district you're a part of. Somewhere like Philadelphia that has catchment areas where you have to send your kid to the area that's assigned to your neighborhood. Or, you may have a few choices. I recommend visiting the school, so that you can just get a feel for what the classroom feels like, what your child will experience in a day, who is interacting with them. You want to make sure where your child goes is a place that they feel happy and welcomed and belong. And so the questions I would ask, as you start looking for schools and whether or not you're going to go to a charter or a large district, or whatever the options are that you may have, is what are the expectations around reading? What are the reading programs that they have? And what are those supports that are in place for students who may not be reading on grade level? There's such a wide range when kids are young, the 3 to 5 population. It just like when they're babies, some kids learn to walk at 9 months, some learn to walk at 15 months. There's a wide range when students are being educated, and so you have to take that into consideration, but you do want to know what kind of tools and supports are in place to make sure that your child is reaching grade level expectations.
Thank you for that. And I want to actually follow up with another question with you. So my next question is, how can moms stay engaged with their child's learning during the early elementary years, both in school and at home?
Is that for me?
Yes.
So one of the things that these are some real basic, like it's not crazy. Read at home. Have fun with letters, numbers, those kinds of things. And I remember this with my sister. She had twins. She's like, they're 4 years old and she's beating them over the head about reading, and they're crying. And, like it should feel like fun when you're working with your child. And so, especially if you're not a teacher, do the things that you're like, A, what words start with A? You know what I mean? Like things that bring joy to learning. And giving them time to read and explore, book upside down, right side up, doesn't matter. Like getting them to engage with, materials is an important way to educate. But if you feel like there's stress and frustration happening, pull back, because I think sometimes we want our kids to do everything, learn quickly, know everything. Um, you don't want to be you don't want to create that kind of conflict that makes learning a challenge for your child and makes it uncomfortable. So think about fun ways to do things, ways that they can work independently, time away from screens. Those are some things that I would recommend for parents with young ones.
Thank you. And speaking of those strategies, Dr. Savoy, what strategies can parents use to support their children through the transition from elementary school into middle school, where independence and peer pressure begins to increase?
I think it's and good morning, everyone. Something happens to us as parents when our children leave elementary school and go to middle and high school. We kind of become a little more disengaged because the students are getting older. There's a level of independence, and there's a higher level of expectations that parents have for their children as they go into middle and high school. But I would share that's the most important time to have relationships with your children. We're in middle schools, contingent upon the district and or school educational entity your child attends. you have to ask the question of how we're supporting the whole child. There are some physiological aspects that are happening with children at that time. There's the peer pressure. There are social emotional developmental skills that children need as they're transitioning from um, elementary to middle and middle to high. One of the things that I would say also is to ensure that your children are actively engaged in activities outside of academics. So if there's the dance class, the music class, the STEM education, all of those programs, ensuring that your children are actively engaged will make learning more interesting and relative. When students get older, we say it's the 3 R's. For me, as a parent and as an educator, rigor. What are my children learning? And how is this going to support them in middle to high and high to their post-secondary opportunity? Relationships. I'm looking at not only what my child is learning, but who is teaching my child. Who is facilitating the learning is of the utmost importance. Educators should look at their children, not just as the content that I have to teach, but also who I am teaching. So as a parent, these are the things that children should look for. I mean, that they should look for in their children's education. And lastly is relevance. As educators, we have an opportunity, a notion to think that we know what's best for children and we will teach our hearts out, right? But if children are disengaged, we have to think about how that we're making the connection from the learning and the content to the student. What are we asking people to do? And how do we know that they're learning and they're building their own connections to the learning? That is what parents should look for. So I'm thinking about the whole child. How are we supporting those social emotional dynamics that children experience? And how are we ensuring that that learning is fun? And I would also say learning and fun and interesting. I would also say middle school is the most crucial years for our children. Elementary supports middle, middle support high. If we don't grab children in in those middle years, then we're already setting them up for a future beyond high school.
Thank you for that. That was very interesting.
And
I want to piggyback off of that just a little bit with another question for you. How can moms encourage confidence and advocacy skills in their children during those years?
I would say it starts before those years. We have to make sure that we are instilling in our children, especially children of color, that they are important. They are, and their ancestors were kings and queens. They should have an expectation when they enter the classroom or the school setting. And then who are we teaching them as parents to be? All of that starts, and I'm going to even say before elementary, when a child enters a different environment outside of where you're raising them, what values are they bringing into that environment? Those lasting values continue, and how are parents reinforcing those values, not only to the student, but when you walk into the school. I'm going to give a quick example. My children are grown, but my son decided in, I'm going to say 10th grade, that he wanted to be a priest. And he's an African American male. Definitely nervous about my child all of this time, all of his years. I went to the school where he was, which was predominantly Caucasian, and they had to know who his mom was and what his mom expected of them to support her child. Now they kind of looked at me like, "Excuse me," but I needed you to know who's behind this young man that
Mhm.
you're educating. So I think those practices and strategies are also important.
Thank you for that. Dr. Bass, I would like for you to add your perspective since advocacy becomes critical leading into high school.
so just for perspective, I'm actually kindergarten through graduate school. I know the
Oh,
bio talked about the high school I started, which was Kip Du Bois in Philadelphia. Currently running kindergarten through 8th grade here in Delaware, and so I'm actually all over the space.
okay.
Couple things to just highlight. Everything that was said was wonderful, and I agree with that. I would also say look at where the children of those that are working at the school send their own children. My
Yeah.
2 children went to the schools that I've led, and that has been important for me. I was actually at Wilmington Friends last night, where the head of school was my teacher when I in Philly at Germantown Friends School. So he's watching his daughters in volleyball while I'm also watching my daughter, who was a graduate, like in the same space. They're telling you with their own children what they're doing. So I would just recommend that. A couple other things going back to how you engage. I would say that the curriculum, a lot of it's online. So you can actually engage with what students are doing. I've seen people from Delaware, New York, and Pennsylvania, and most curricula has online components that your children are currently logging into, especially kindergarten through 12th grade, which is unique because I know I'm talking about kindergarten through 5th grade. Most of the platforms are online, and most students, especially since the pandemic, have moved to one-to-one ratios of technology. So you can see the same stuff that they're doing and also check their progress. I highly encourage that you get those same logins that your children are looking at to see the work they're doing in classes. Not all of it will be in class, but definitely get what you can. And then again, to the work that students are doing as far as their behavior goes, most schools are using an online platform, be it Live School, Dojo, even Infinite Campus, or some other platform to monitor and track how students are performing. That's kindergarten through 12th grade. So instead of waiting for the big reports, like suspensions and things like that, or even waiting until you get to the report card conference, you can see on a daily basis, even minute by minute, how your children are doing based off of how teachers are inputting their dollars or demerits or merits, et cetera, however they're using. So I have parents that I was doing the same thing. I would check on my own children in my own building. And I knew there was an issue this morning with my son. So when he got into class and he was moody, I was seeing he was getting demerits right until 10 o'clock in the morning. It was never anything big. It was just him being just a teenage boy. But then I can monitor his progress and see what's taking place during the day. I might not ever get a phone call. I might not ever get somebody to reach out to me, but I can see what's taking place. And a lot of times they'll even show you that there are clusters of children that might be involved in stuff, be it positives or negatives. So you can start looking at your child's peer group. I highly encourage being on student social media. My children couldn't get into social media until they were about 6th, 7th grade, which I still think is a little bit too young. I lost that battle. At the same time, knowing what my children are doing, so being friends with your children, whenever they start through high school, even college, matters a lot because you can see what are they doing, what are they into, what are their interests. My wife reached out to my daughter last night because she's into K-pop and there was a concert taking place, but the fact that my wife knows all the bands my daughter likes speaks to that level of engagement. And we can also make sure that sometimes I have some peers that I don't want my children around. And my children might not be able to see what I can see in my 40s that they can't see in their teens. And so highly encouraged to be as engaged as possible. At the same time, you don't have to do it by being a helicopter because so much of that is also online right now.
I agree. I agree. Thank you for that. My next question is a broad question for everyone, but I actually want to direct this one to Dr. Bass. What advice would you give parents of children with special needs on how to advocate for their children to ensure that they receive the right support services and partner effectively with the teachers and schools?
Ooh, great question. So, not sure if everyone's clear. The Department of Education is about to be abolished. It's currently being run by the head of the Wrestling Federation. And I'm saying that, which sounds like the most hilarious comment ever in the history of the world, but it's a true statement. Linda McMahon is the Secretary of Education. That's going to be abolished. So, a couple things. One, you should know special education law, IDEA. And what a lot of our parents do when they're coming into special education meetings, one, if you suspect that your child has special needs, and I saw that in the chat as well, definitely raise those. If your child is coming before they enter schooling, so kindergarten, you can actually get them tested if they're in a district pre-K program before they even enter kindergarten. Depending on what the diagnosis happens to be, it'll either be medical, so you can talk with your child's physician, or you can talk with your child's school. The faster you get the help, the better. Two, you run the meeting. So this is you're being tasked with tons of federal legal jargon. And that's a scary thing, especially if you don't have a law degree or a master's or a doctorate in education. It doesn't matter. You have to sign off on any documentation that you receive. And if you don't, you can say, I need you, one, to explain it to me, or two, I disagree. What are the next steps? If you do not sign off, you have power here. And a lot of times parents don't know that. A lot of times I'll spend time with parents and we lay stacks of federal papers down in front of them and go through this process. And I'll sit with them. No, this is what this means. This is actually this conversation. So when you sign the PTE, permission to evaluate, it doesn't mean your child has an IEP. That's a special education program. What it does mean is that you give us permission to evaluate, and we're going to ask you tons of questions that might not be things that you think are important to you. It doesn't matter. We have to do a full battery of assessments to make sure we're looking at everything your child needs. At the same time, ask questions along the way. And then you will also be reevaluating the IEP throughout your child's tenure. So if you feel that things are not being done where it's supposed to be done, for example, your child's supposed to have pullout for math every day for 2 hours, once a week for 1 hour, whatever the case happens to be. If that's not happening because you're talking to your child and realizing, oh, Mr. So-and-so is not actually pulling you out, you have a federally binding document that states that this is supposed to happen. Why did I bring up the federal government before? Because those federal protections are going to start going away. Most states still have those same protections within them. So New York, Pennsylvania, and Delaware, what I'm seeing people in the chat, lots of those states are actually looking to ensure those protections in the state level, even if it's gone at the federal level. So good news for you, you still get to do that. The other swing of this is also, I saw about gifted students. And so for gifted education, that actually does not come under special education, but depending on your state, there's still protections for it. Delaware, there's zero protections for gifted education. It doesn't even exist in the state of Delaware. There's zero funding for it. My doctorate's in that, and I've been arguing with the state for a long time about that. In Pennsylvania, there's actually funding for it. So you can actually get certain state protections for gifted education. Here's what this means. You're going to get an assessment. Your child is being assessed every year on a state assessment, and most times they're being assessed on another assessment, which is simply just MAP, iReady, something else. It's called norm referenced. All that means is that there's a pre and a post test your child's taking, maybe in the winter as well. At the report card conferences, you're going to see how your child is doing compared to thousands of other students, not just at the school level. If your child is performing well above, you should be having conversations about how are you challenging my child? Are there gifted services? Are there honor services, honor programs at the school? How do I engage in that? On the flip side, if my child is not performing well, is performing well below standard, then that's when we start looking at what are the other services I need to do to make sure my child is going to move in the right direction. And so that's where you get into special education. It doesn't always mean if your child's performing below level, the next step is always special education. But definitely for both sides of this conversation, have the questions, have the conversation. And if you feel that you are not getting the answers you need, feel encouraged to definitely escalate that. Go to your district, then go to your state, and you can say, hey, I had these certain questions. I'm not getting these answers. I'm at insert school. What do I need to do?
Thank you for that. Dr. Savoy, would you like to add anything in regards to the systematic access surrounding special needs?
Yes, and Doctor, I was nodding because all the things I wanted to say, Dr. Van said it, but I would emphasize, especially if your child is of school age, if you see that your child is not, if you hear, see, or experience your child is not performing at grade level expectations, first I would ask, what's the evidence of that? So I'm going to speak from a parent perspective. What's the evidence of that? And if it's a test, a multiple choice test or something like that, I need to see my students' work. Let me see my child's work so that you can show them that you're looking at where your child is falling short. If they had an addition problem, tell me where they're having difficulty. And I say that because, and I see Norma nodding her head, it's not straight special education. Sometimes is what's happening with the adult that is not supporting the needs of the student. And you want to know exactly what it is, not just your child is falling below grade level. As an educator, we educate students based on Pennsylvania state standards or Common Core standards. As an educator, I'm gonna tell you this, 30 years tomorrow, I'm still educating educators on student-aligned instruction. So if educators are not deep in their pedagogy and methodology, I'm not going to punish a student for not performing at grade level expectations. As a parent, this is information you need to know to arm yourself when you, I shouldn't say arm, to support yourself when you are having conversations with the adults in the building. I would also say, even before special education, and Dr. Bass said it, I want to know what that multi-tier system of support is for my child. I want to know what the response to intervention is to my child, for my child, prior to saying your child needs to be tested. And often when parents become frustrated and they know that their child is not performing at level, they will say, I want my child assessed. Not a problem. We have to do it. But at the same time, if you're an advocate for your child, you want to know exactly where the child is falling short. What are the supports that are happening in that school for your child prior to saying my child need additional supports? And I always say this too, especially when a child is identified as learning support. That child is now is labeled as needing learning support. They're going back into the same classroom, most likely that they were in prior to being identified as learning support. Now they're still needing those services. Who's providing them? Right? It could be the special education teacher. It could be that the teacher has to implement something, and they're still monitoring the students. So I would say try some strategies and intervention prior to saying your child needs um, special education. In the aspect of gifted support, once our children are performing above grade level or their A's all the time, kind of think about how they're processing information and how they're applying information. So it's just not performing at or above level. It's their level of thinking that pushes them to that gifted support. So now you're not just looking at textbook and tests and responding to text. To his point, you want to know what kind of learning your child is engaged in. And that's when they get into project-based assessments or problem-based learning, so that their Bloom's level, their Webb's level is at the highest level. That's what you want to see for your child.
Thank you so much. Thank you all for your input on that. We're going to move our second set of discussion questions for high school and college. So the first question I have is for Dr. Sabule. What's the best way to advocate for a child when their needs are overlooked in high school, whether academically, socially, emotionally?
I think one, knowing what's happening with your child. When I say that, we talked about schools and staff communicate with parents via mail or whatever technology they're using. Power School, Schoology, and I think in Philadelphia they're using Power School now, if I'm correct. All of the, make sure that you have login information for your children. Monitor their attendance, not just the daily attendance. Are they cutting? Are they attending every class that they're supposed to attend? You may even want to do a visit. Visit your child's school. Visit your child's school and say you want to know how they're doing. Call my child down to the office. Call my child to the counselor. Know who your child's counselor is in the school. Have conversations with your child's counselor about what are the post-secondary interests of your children. If they're in ninth grade, my child was interested in being a surgeon and as a teacher, as I said earlier, but what are they interested in? And then how are the counselors, college and career counselors, teachers using those interests to make learning relevant for your child? That means the same interest and the same advocacy and the same involvement that you have with a child in preschool, kindergarten, first, second grade, have it in high school. When there are events happening in high school, go to the events with your child. Know about what all those extracurricular activities are, not just athletics, that are available to your child in the school that they are in. I would also say in high school, if they're preparing for employment, if they're preparing for trade, or if they're preparing for college, they're looking for a whole child. They're looking for what else can your child offer besides being smart and getting A's. They're looking at how your child is involved in other activities They're looking to see how your child has the skill set, transferable skills in any environment. They're looking to see if your child can get along with others. They're looking to see if your child can problem solve, if they have if they can initiate um, um, thoughts on their own or activities on their own. They're looking for that, and that starts. And I'm gonna say again, you can say middle through high school, but ensuring that your child has those opportunities. I would also say it's never too early to start the writing. If they're writing cover letters, if they're writing scholarship essays, if they're writing for school, have them write. Literacy is reading, writing, listening, and speaking. That's ultimately important all through the K to 12, pre-K to 12 system, but especially when they're in high school. You want to make sure that your child is experiencing all of them, because once they leave 12th grade, they're going to have to use them in algebra 1. So reading, writing, listening, and speaking, algebra 1. Whatever the interest is literacy in algebra 1 that will make your child the most successful and prepared for a post-secondary opportunity. And this just be there. And I said this when I was a teacher in elementary school. When we see you there, we know that your expectations, I see people nodding, then I'm going to be on my toes and I'm going to give you my best because I know that you're showing up.
Thank you, Dr. Savoy, for highlighting those strategies. Dr. Gittens, I'd love for you to add your perspective as well, particularly around the academic structures and leadership, since those play an important role in ensuring that students don't fall through the cracks.
I just dropped in the chat a link to the opportunity myth, which is a report that TNTP, or the National Teachers Project, did back in 2018. And that speaks to some of what some of the other panelists were talking about, whether or not teachers are teaching to standards. I say this to my friends all the time. Your concern when your students have straight A's and you don't see them sweating about school is a place to start asking questions, because oftentimes those students are doing really well, getting straight A's, then they get to college and they can't persist because they have not really been challenged academically. And so that's really something that's important. And it's an interesting read. A lot of it is about how students that go to school and do everything they're supposed to do are still not prepared for the challenges and the rigor that is expected when they get to college. So I really want to make sure that you are thinking about those things. This is not to freak you out. It's to like make you aware. I think about this all the time. Like, what if my kid gets the wrong, teacher for kindergarten or third grade or whatever it is? There's lots of opportunities to just make sure that you are engaging in other ways around, like, being a part of this conversation is a great starting place, right? I've worked in urban, I've worked in suburban, I've worked in charter, I've worked in traditional districts. I can tell you that, some of my experience, even in suburban districts, is families are getting their kids tutored from kindergarten. White folks are not resting and waiting for the public schools to be the solution to everything that it is that their child needs. And unfortunately, public education should be the great equalizer. It is not, because of the way education is funded and all the things, right? But it's oftentimes the racism of low expectations for students. When people don't expect your child to be great, they won't teach them to that level. And so you have to really go into the space and make sure that folks understand what it is that you want. Stable leadership, when you see that there's been a principal in a building for many, many years, maybe there's a new one, but before that, there's been stability. There's stability among the teaching staff. That's how things are accomplished in education. So if you have an opportunity to ask questions about like what's staff turnover, how long have these teachers been here, how long has this school leader been here, how many principals have been here in the past 5 years, those are some questions that will tell you about, those, you'll get answers to those things that'll help you understand the stability of the school that you're sending your child to. And those are some things to look at. I think it's also tremendously important for us to, if you can look back at the history since post civil rights, before deseg, we were out of one room schoolhouses having more doctors, attorneys, and you name it, because people expected, we had Black teachers who expected great things from Black students in their community. And now we have folks who live all over the place. And it's a great idea to be like, where do you send your kid? But oftentimes we don't even live in the same districts that we work in, because we've made decisions as educated folks to move to places where we feel like we'll get more, right? And so it's not always an easy match to see, like, where do you send your child? I don't live in the same district that I work in, right? And I also, there's no need to apologize for that, but it's really important for you to hear the language. I'm going to tell you something for folks who live in white communities and, or oftentimes trying to get their children in white presenting schools. We did a study in one of the districts just a small study in one of the districts that I worked in right outside of Boston. And the question for our kindergarten parents was, what do you want for your child by the end of this school year? There was a clear division. White families wanted their kids to have fun and make friends. Our Black and brown families wanted to make sure that their kids read by the end of the year. So depending on who is in charge in those spaces, you may get the fun kindergarten teacher where kids make friends and right. Or you could get somebody who is like, I understand this, and I'm going to make sure that your child reads by the end of the year. And so making sure that you're having those conversations with folks, that they know, and you are showing up for PTA, for even hiring committees, if that's something that the community that you're in or the school that you're engaging in, when they're hiring new folks, do they have parents on the interview committees to add their input? There are some real important ways that you can be involved that go beyond the bake sale, that go beyond, parent teacher meetings. How can you think about ways that you can engage? And it's not for everyone. People are working out here and got multiple jobs to keep life together. But when you see opportunities to engage and when you see folks inviting you to the conversation, don't hesitate about adding what is really important to you to the conversation, and just keep being in folks' faces. I think that's really important.
I just wanted
Thank
to,
you.
if possible, add to what Dr. Gittens was saying, which I appreciate. If you think back before the civil rights passage and desegregation, there were the Black judges and lawyers and doctors all living in the same area. So Dr. King grew up Sweet Auburn in Atlanta, where the janitor lived next to the surgeons. When you're looking for a school, that's one thing we've created here in Delaware, at least, is providing access. So we have, the school I'm currently at is in the highest poverty section of the entire state. It also outperforms the state every year. It has the highest growth of any school in the entire state. It has the highest amount of scholarship dollars in the entire state. The reason we have these great outcomes in the most impoverished area, and also have affluent white people flocking to the hood to send their children, is because we also provide access to the doctors, the lawyers, the judges. The STEM center that we just built is we have hackathons take place. We have kids that have become learn advanced manufacturing starting at 5 years old, which is because we started saying, well, what happened in the Black community, how to provide those resources. And so now my daughter has a law internship in high school that she started when she was in 5th grade at my school. And she now is a part of national legal programs because it blossomed from there. All that to say, look at the opportunities that take place in high school and in the middle schools your children are looking at, because that also leads to the positive peer pressure. Her friends are also aspiring lawyers that work with federal judges. And that means a whole lot of difference. And so I just want to applaud what Dr. Gittens was saying and say, yep, that's fully agreement.
Thank you so much. And I hope everyone downloaded the article that was sent to us in the chat. I wanted to direct this next question to I'm so sorry. I lost my question. That threw me off. My apologies. I wanted to direct my next question to I'm sorry. My next question is, what strategies can parents use to support their children? That's not the next question. I'm sorry. What resources should families know about? And Dr. Savoy touched on this already, but I wanted to ask Aisha, what resources should families know about tutoring, scholarships, mentorships, and community programs to prepare for post-secondary options in early education? So beginning from early education, going into post-secondary options.
So early childhood education, preschool, it's
Yes.
lifelong. It starts there. So everything, the panelists, everyone is speaking to strategies that are in their area, but that actually starts at preschool. Once your child or children enter an educational institution, access and opportunity, that's important. Those relationships, in order to be confident to ask questions, you have to have the relationship. The communication pieces have to be there. You don't want to be adversarial. I feel like a lot of times when, as people of color, we feel like we have to fight our way, or our advocacy is a struggle. And it doesn't have to be that way. At the onset, if you're coming, I was always taught you catch bees with honey. And these are people that you're dealing with. So yes, we have individuals who have titles and credentials that are standing in front of our students that are in these educational institutions, but they're also human beings who are impacted by our energy, the racism of America, or everything that's going on. So you have to be strategic in thinking about how can I get my best from this person to get me the information, to get that additional resource. So you really just have to, ground yourself in that, and be strong in that. Confidence, all those things that were lifted in prior responses, that starts in early childhood education. So I feel like people want to separate it, and of course developmentally there's a stark difference, but in terms of the advocacy strategies, special needs, all that starts in early childhood education. So you asked about strategies for tutoring. In Philadelphia, that's primarily where I am. There are some free resources that the district does offer through partnerships. You have Rise Philadelphia that offers free tutoring. We have the Free Libraries of Philadelphia that have their programs after school for tutoring. And then, again, private tutoring services that are offered that parents take upon themselves. Or just, again, like I said, insert yourself in the community, that you're a community. It takes a village. Parents are working, but it could be another family member that also supports your child on their educational journey. It could be a teacher. Having a conversation with a teacher can get you some additional support. Again, it's all about those relationships, communicating, being clear and specific about your expectations and the expectations for your child. So that's what I would say.
Thank you. And Dr. Savoy, I know you touched on this a little earlier, but is there anything that you want to add onto this question?
I'm going to put parents to work right now. Okay. I think outside of the actual school, if you're in a district, look on the district's website. They either have a college and career readiness or they have a um, post-secondary website. And I'm going to look and see what's on that website. I'm going to also say if you're in Pennsylvania and your child is graduating from a Pennsylvania public school, in addition to earning the credits, they have to earn Act 158 certification, which means there are 5 pathways where children can graduate in addition to earning the high school credits. They either have to perform at proficient levels on the Keystone exam, which is English, encompasses English 1 and 2, biology, and Algebra 1. Or they have to have a composite score. They're the first 2 pathways. The third pathway is completing a career and technical education program. The next one is interest in completing a dual enrollment course, an AP course. There is also the alternate assessment of SAT, ASAB, and oh my God, it just escaped me. What is the one that's not SAT? ACT. Is it ACT? Oh my God, what is it? Is it okay? Thank you.
ACT.
ACT, yeah.
And there's the last one where they have to have some level of credential, community service, and it's like 2 or 1. So that is important for parents to know because we only look at report cards, but there's another requirement for graduation in Pennsylvania. In addition to that, look at organizations that are within your community or within the vicinity. So I'm going to use Philadelphia. Look at the adult social organizations. I'm a member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority. I'm a member of the Links. We are constantly engaged with youth and providing opportunities to youth. That is definitely a place to look. I would also look at if you're in a place where there are colleges and universities, they have activities for students, including Penn, activities for students who are interested mainly in science, STEM or science is what I'm noticing. I would also say in high school, ensure that your children are using Khan Academy. That's automatic, that's free. Take advantage of all PSAT, SAT preps. If your child has the opportunity to take the PSAT, let them take the PSAT because this is what educators use to determine if your child has the capacity to complete an AP course. We look at those PSAT scores for that. So that's something important that we need to ensure that our parents know so that they can support their children in being serious and preparing for those assessments. I would also say, and this is something that I've learned in my professional career, and I say this publicly, as educators and as leaders of educational entities, we know our accountability level is the graduation rate. That's our graduation rate. We have to increase our graduation rate. Whether you're in public, charter, or private, we want all of our children to graduate. And I believe we said this earlier, how well prepared they are for post-secondary opportunities is really the mouthpiece of our educational system. We can graduate all of our children. And I say this, you have prom in May. I tell this to children, you have prom in May, you have graduation in June. July and August, your child is preparing for something. In August, after the children leave that are going away to school, what are the other ones doing? If we haven't prepared them, when we see what's happening in our community, that's just not young folks' problem. That's our problem because they aren't being prepared well, whether it's for the opportunity or the capacity for that opportunity. That is something that I hold all of us accountable for. We can say we increase graduation rate or what the graduation rate is, but if those children leave our educational systems and do not complete or do not go to school after that freshman year, we didn't do our job. If they don't have a plan before 12th grade, because 12th grade is when you're preparing that exit, not preparing what I shouldn't be thinking about in 12th grade. What do I want to do with the rest of my life? That happens well before 12th grade. 12th grade is the preparation for transition that you talked about earlier. So what is happening in that middle and high school? And there are three things that in this, if you're in Philadelphia, this is definitely not just the school district, but workforce development and such. We emphasize, and I'm not there anymore, but I've been there forever, right? We emphasize career awareness, career exposure, career immersion. That is one thing that Philadelphia School District offers children. Make sure that you go on that website and see what the opportunities are. There are opportunities for students to earn associate degrees. There are opportunities for students to earn dual enrollment credit, which are transferable, especially in Pennsylvania, but contingent upon the course are transferable everywhere. We had students that went to all the way to Xavier University with the credits that they've taken in the educational system that they didn't have to pay for. Remember that. So I'm going to say, and that's the one that I can speak to the most. Look on the School District of Philadelphia's website and see what those opportunities are. Lastly, I will say, because there was one question about if you think your child needs services, you don't have to be by yourself. You can look on Pennsylvania Department of Education website. If you're in Pennsylvania, if you're Delaware, I know Dr. Bassett, he's in Delaware, he may have the website there. There are parent advocates that will support you when you have those IEP meetings or permission to evaluate meetings. Make sure that you use those organizations that have advocacy, so the advocates that can support you in those meetings so that you're not sitting there by yourself, because it is a lot of educational jargon, and then people are telling you about your child, and you should be the one sharing about your child, because the child belongs to you, and we're here to support them. Just remember that. Oh, thank you.
Thank,
He put it in the chat. Thank you.
thank you so much for that insight. Um, Dr. Bass, I'd like to begin with you on this question. How can moms continue to support their children once they leave home for college or career training while still allowing them space to grow independently?
So when they leave for college and their careers, definitely stay in touch with students. You will not have the same access legally to all of their information. So when they are in college, you do not get access to their grades. You only pay for their schooling, unfortunately. So I would encourage building those relationships of, hey, I need check-ins with you. So before I send you any money, every month I want to see update on your grades. Build that as a routine, so it's not something that you just simply just do when I'm waiting. Half of the students that enter college do not graduate. So what that means is that going to college means that you have college debt. It means nothing more if you do not graduate. Having the college degree is what you're going for. And there are way too many students that have taken on college debt that are now working in places where they are paying off college debt and don't have the rewards for that. I think the other piece is also looking at, do you have allies in the programs that your children are in? So every place my children have personally gone to, I've had an ally there. So I know somebody that can be engaged if I can't. My son is now a senior in high school, and so his assistant principal will be at my house tonight, and that is the reason why my son is at that school, because just in case I need to get over there, I know somebody. My daughter, her school, same thing, I know people. Same thing for the colleges. Most times your school has a connection with those different schools. Make sure you find an advisor that is there. Make sure you find somebody if you can. And so that's important. The other piece is also making sure, where's your child looking? So when we talked about going to college, and that starts well before they're in their 12th grade year, the same thing, looking at the career goals after they graduate from college. So freshman, sophomore, junior year, you should be having the conversation about, well, what are you trying to do? Then look at summer internship programs with your child. Prepare them for that career journey now. So if they plan to become a surgeon, then what should they be doing in the summertime? Are there programs that work with that? Patients Are Waiting is actually a program that a friend of mine started in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, and now she's doing it nationally, where they're focused on African Americans, increasing the role of African Americans in medical fields. And she's a doctor who had to do that all on her own, and then created this entire tribe of people all across the nation that are doing that together. So find programs that will build internships, and a lot of those will also come with money. There are legal programs that do the same thing. So as your students are starting to look at how I get into law, what does the pre-law track look like? And then how I can start preparing post-college for law school, and even starting to prepare for my LSATs, not in my senior year, but start focusing on LSATs in my sophomore year, being around lawyers and judges and internships like that. So I would say stay engaged, but at the same time, make sure you're focusing on how you can do that healthily. The last thing I would say is that mental health is very important. And so when our children head off, make sure that are there mental health services on the college campus? Does your child know what those mental health services are? And that you also, if you're doing telehealth, they have access to that. It does mean you need to have that all the time. But when you start noticing that your child is starting to feel that there's transition taking place and they're not adjusting well to the change, then can you connect with other resources where they don't want to talk to you, but they want to talk to somebody else for them? And most times you already have that in your insurance plan as well.
I like that a lot. Build
Can I
community.
I'm sorry, can I add in just one thing on that, especially with the college selection process? A lot of times our young folks aren't finishing school is because financially they have to stop out. And so it is so important. My mom was in financial aid forever, right? Have those real conversations with your kids about what you can afford to do. If you can't afford to send them, if you have to go to state school, then you have to go to state school because it's more affordable, whatever it is. What I can tell you that I've noticed about families that are not, Black community, we're like, go to college. I just want you to you got to go without an exact plan. And I will tell you, my goddaughter is going to school paying $70,000 a year. She wants to be a physical therapist. I'm not mad at that, but $70,000 times 4 is do she's going to take forever. It'll be the rest of her life before she pays off her student loans. And her mom just wanted her to go where she would be happy. And I'm like, that's not a wise financial decision. But okay, she's in year 2. I don't think she's going to make it to year 3 at this particular school because it's too much of a financial burden for the family. But that wasn't part of the conversation when she started looking at schools. And that is very important. School is so much more expensive than when any of us went. So it is really an important thing. And I just want to go back to something that Dr. Savoy said about the AP, the SATs, the PSATs, the ACTs. When your child takes the PSATs, the schools get a AP potential report. That means after they take and this was shocking to me to see how many Black boys were recommended for AP science courses. But if we didn't share that report with families to let them know that that's your child's going into this AP class because we know they can do it, you want to ask that question so that if there are AP classes at your child's high school, they are registering if there's a report that says based on that PSAT score, they really would be successful. And then you don't let them drop out of that class. It's probably going to be the hardest class that they've taken thus far, but it really does prepare students for the rigors of college. And so you just want to make sure that you are holding them accountable, holding the school accountable to make sure that your child is registering for the course that they should be in, and they can't drop those classes without your permission.
Thank you.
I just want to add one thing to that. You hit the nail on the hammer on the nail, the nail on the hammer. The other thing is to think about, we get excited. If you think about graduations that you've been to, or if you've been in high school, they'll say students raise $1 million in scholarships. That's not really true. They don't think about the school that they're going to and how much money that school is giving them. And something else to think about, to your point, I went to a private institution. My mother made all 3 of us go to the same private institution. My brother's the only one that's still not paying a bill because he went into the reserves. Think about that. I would also say they entice us, especially if they have to meet a quota. Remember that. If they have to have a certain number of students of color in their college and university, they will entice you with scholarship or financial aid funding Make sure it lasts throughout the time. And then what are the requirements for it? Your child has to maintain a B average or a 3.0, a 3.2, 3.3. If they don't, then they don't have the scholarship. And as a parent, you were relying on that. So be very careful about the school that they go to and what they're offering them the whole time, not just that freshman year. And then the other thing, wherever your child goes, just remember.
Thank you all.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead. I'm so
I was
sorry.
going to say colleges and universities have, just like you think about what school you want your child to go to based on their record, colleges and universities base their financial aid and their acceptance based on the school where your child is coming from. Remember that, because there is a reputation behind the school.
Thank you all for tagging yourself in on the questions that I was already going to ask you guys. You were right on point. I appreciate it. I want to move to the next question. I want to direct this question to Dr. Bass. What advice can you give about preparing? I feel like we answered this already, but we'll.
Irene, we're actually over our time. Can we open for questions now?
Sure.
I don't know if anybody has a question, but I have a burning question.
Oh, sure.
So we're in the age of AI, and as an adult, one of our concerns is whether or not we're all still even going to have jobs. Like some of the things that we do are even going to be relevant. And some of the things that you mentioned in making sure that our kids know how to read and they know how to write. And now we're moving into an age where you simply just know how to speak and something can be done for you. Like an entire, paper could be done for you by way of prompts. So I'm just wondering, how is that impacting all of you and just like the education system in general? And just one, I guess, how are you preparing the children for what's ahead? And how do we as parents, because I know I feel like I'm a relatively new mom, and you don't want your kids to be on tablets and other things, but then on the other hand, it's like if I don't let them be on a tablet and do certain things, then they're going to be behind because like technology is here. So I know I said a lot, but hopefully you know what I'm trying to say. I'm just curious about how your feelings around just AI.
I can jump in because I'm actually working on that right now. Artificial intelligence is going to impact white and blue collar jobs. Lawyers are losing their jobs right now. Law firms are hiring technologists and not hiring lawyers. So what we thought was going to simply just be artificial intelligence for certain sectors is literally for all. Finding that AI proof right now are things that are in the trades. So there's a lot of funding in plumbing and in construction, those fields and industries. I would say for artificial intelligence, the one thing that AI cannot do is synthesize. It can't create ideas. So a lot of times you'll find that even when students are using, write a paper on Shakespeare's blank, we know it's AI. Like I know when you're bluffing. I can find that right now. The same way I could use the same skills to say, you copied and pasted this from someone else, because if you cannot conjugate the verb to be, then this doctoral dissertation you just handed me is not yours. So the thinking process, the synthesis process that we're doing is what's most important, creativity. And so that's why we're now engaging students with artificial intelligence through coding. We're engaging students, and this is early as age 5. So we start off in, we're actually working with 3 and 4-year-olds, our tech for TOCs. They learn how to do coding. That moves into them doing artificial intelligence and robots in 5th grade. And then moves to the advanced manufacturing. We have our students doing 5th through 8th grade, so they can actually start taking those same classes in high school. And then we're working on a project right now where that goes towards college credit. So I would say do engage, allow children to use access to stuff, but it's going to be, are they creative in what they're doing? A lot of just screen time is passive. It's not active. It means that I'm watching something, but I haven't done anything. So tell me about how have you actually been using Minecraft is a great example of that. There are things called tailbots that we use in our STEM lab right now. A tailbot is a very simple device that teaches 5-year-olds how to do coding. We use something called straw bees. So I have children that will play with straws. It looks simply just like the straws you would get at McDonald's. They're colorful and they're straw bees, and they build items out of these straws. They play with it when they're 3, 4, 5 years old. We start adding motors to it, encoding those motors when they are 7. So there's a number of devices out there. You feel free to come to our STEM hub if you ever want to, and you can check out the stuff right there. We have kids playing with stuff all the time. That's interesting. And what I find even more impressive is that we were doing we had Fox News coming out to do a report on our school. We got these new robots in the day before. My tech guy couldn't get the robots to work. So I come back 2 hours later. I have kids that have programmed the robots, have done a whole bunch of other stuff, and even have them recording their voices on them and doing obstacle courses. So I high-fived the tech guy. I was like, that's amazing. You made this thing work. He said, no, I couldn't figure out. The kids asked me if they could do it, and they did it on their own. So a lot of times our young people are more courageous than we are as adults, which is why if you look at the stuff for children right now, most of the technology that they have don't even have instruction manuals. They just start working with it. What we find is the adults are the ones that are holding kids back, because a lot of times we feel like, I can't let you use this until I figure this thing out. Let them all go. And Dawn Marie, I saw your baby right over there. So that's perfect age for even what young Cassidy's doing too.
That was my question. I wanted to ask, and this is open to everyone. Do you think the parents are the ones holding the students back based off of the lack of education and knowledge that we had in our generation and how tech is moving now?
I'm just going to add really quickly. It depends on the case, not all parents. But what I will say about AI is creating a learning environment that is more responsive and efficient. And it is not something that we should be afraid of. It allows for more creativity and engagement. And we've been exposing children to coding. This is not something new. AI has been evolving over some time. So as far as jobs in the future, I feel personally, no one can really predict the future. And even in AI, there's a downward spiral in tech jobs just right now with what's going on with our overall economy and global impact with what's going on. So I would just say again, prepare. AI is going to make the learning environment more responsive, creative, and efficient. It's a tool for people to use. So it's not something that we should be afraid of. And again, access and opportunity, creating that confidence in your child. And you'll see everyone has a lifelong journey, educational, it's a lifelong learning, So the career will be ready for them as we prepare them from pre-K, and all the different strategies and tools that we've imparted today, implementing those, being a part of Mocha Moms, and just staying positive, and your child will excel.
I would also add, like, AI cannot think critically, right? Junk in, junk out. We still have to make sure that our students can think critically. If a student can write a paper with AI, it's because we didn't ask the right question as educators that require them to include their thinking at a level that can't just be put into AI. So we should be asking questions that are, you know, what kind, you have this information, you read this book, what do you know, what do you think, how do you feel about this, what did that make you think of, so that even if students are using AI to correct grammar, it is not they're not able to answer the question fully without engaging with the material themselves. And so that's the work for us as educators, to start making sure that we're asking higher order thinking questions that cannot just be spit out of Gemini. I use AI a lot just to, like, how would I share this information? Like, what's a good way to share this information with people who don't really understand the jargon of education? Like, how would I make this communication more clear for families? But I had to put the information in for AI to help me break it down to someone who might not understand the jargon that we engage in often in education. And just as I'm saying that, when you're meeting with folks and they say some stuff you don't know, say, I don't know what that means. I moved from Boston to DC. They have acronyms in DC, and I've been in education for a very long time. They have acronyms in this school. I'm like, what are y'all talking about? Not because I don't know, but because I don't know the acronyms that you're using. You know what I mean? So I don't want people to feel like, I'm not, oh, I don't want to ask this question because I don't want people to think I'm not smart. Who cares? Ask the question always.
I would add to for parents, well, I'm going to say don't be afraid, because in any job in the future, if we're educating students for we should educate students for jobs that don't exist right now. Keep that in mind. Don't be afraid of any technology, including AI. And to Dr. Nicole's point, download Webb's Depth of Knowledge and download Bloom's taxonomy. In Webb's Depth of Knowledge, you can ask when your children have assignments. Ask those questions in levels 3 and 4. They can't use Gemini, ChatGPT. They have to put something in it in order to answer those questions. That's what Dr. Nicole was just talking about. So download those, because that will encourage the higher order thinking. I'm going to say too, to Dr. Nicole's point, I'm using AI right now. I use Gemini. I don't like ChatGPT, but I use it because people have said that I am very direct, right? And my emails may not be so friendly, but I'm in the business of educating students, so I don't want to be friendly all the time. However, I put my my message in Gemini and say, make it professional yet direct, or make it professional. I'm sending this to my superintendent. I'll make it professional and I'm sending it to one of my team members, just to make it softer and direct to, and it fit the audience in which I'm trying to speak. And to your point, I'm full with educational terms and not necessarily, my language is not necessarily friendly to all audiences. So you can use it in that manner too. We do encourage the use of AI responsibly, and we encourage educators to use AI. We got to a point where educators can download a lesson plan, but if you don't know how to teach it.
Thank you all. Thank you all. As we wrap up, I want to thank all our panelists for sharing their knowledge, and our moms for joining us today. We appreciate you all. You all get a hand clap for all of the knowledge you shared today. Remember, together we strengthen our schools, we support our children, and we empower our communities. We encourage you all to please stay connected with the Mocha Moms for future events and resources. And we thank you all again for your participation. Akila, would you like to add anything?
I mean, since we have 5 minutes, if anyone has any additional questions, we could take the last couple of minutes to just to share them. But I just also want to say thank you to the panelists. This was such an amazing conversation. We should have had 1,000 people in here with us. I saw so much content and sound bites of nuggets that you gave that we will certainly be figuring out how we can cut up and share this on social media, because I am fully aware that our communities need this information. And a lot of times we have these types of things, and for whatever reason, people don't come out and get the information. And also, a part of another question that I also wanted to ask is, because I've heard this from my members, is going back to the EIPs. I just, as a question to ask as we go out, what would you say to a parent that has shame or fear around their child having an EIP? That's been a conversation we've had very recently, where there is so much resistance to having it and not wanting their child to need the resources, that it's impacting how parents engage with the process.
I'll just start with from pre-K, because it starts there as well. And it is a very emotional and challenging time for a lot of parents, especially younger parents. From what, in my experience now, to talk to relevancy, a lot of parents are younger and they don't understand, or just the communication piece is not there to be able to ask those questions. So again, and I've said this in the beginning, encouraging parents, that doesn't matter how old they are, to be that partner so that they can get the understanding, ask the questions, build the relationship, because their child is so young, still developing. A lot of things are unknown for the parent. So it's just about getting that understanding. The earlier, the better, because early intervention can support and help throughout your lifelong journey, as on your educational journey. So it's really and be a part of another. Be open to talking to other parents. You know, Mocha moms. You guys may have a committee of special needs parents that can offer advice and their authentic stories to empower and lift each other, to let them know that they're not alone. So they have to have the confidence in knowing that they're not alone and it's not just their child. So being a part of the community overall and being vulnerable.
I would just add in, so Frederick Douglass said it is easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. Those words are still true today. And also knowing that students with special education have been the president of the United States, Joe Biden. They have run Apple. They have run Amazon. They have run Tesla. And so if we start only dealing with these small microcosms of what it means to be special education, then we limit our children. We are damaging children by not doing that. The other piece I would add is, in conversation with your school, talk about the inclusion model. So for special education, in my era growing up, it was we would make fun, and it was commonplace to have just jokes about people that had special needs. Now we have shifted that, and so you will find that in schools like mine that have inclusion models, this means that there are children that have special education IEPs that have grown up with other students, and when there's another teacher in the classroom, no one thinks twice about it. When a student gets pulled out for certain support, there are other kids that are regular mainstream education that will also ask to get pulled out too, because they don't see the stigma of special education. They're thinking, oh, I want to go with Mr. So-and-so because he's actually doing this certain game with a certain student. So do have the conversation. What is the culture of special education in your school? What is the inclusion model? And never, ever, ever take away from the resources from your children because you care about the opinions of people that are not in your household.
And be
I
proud.
agree. I agree. I totally agree.
Yeah,
My daughter had an
completely.
IEP all the way through college, and it helped her all the way through college. And my baby was able to graduate, and she gonna use it again when she go to graduate school. Keep.
Yeah, it goes with you for life. You
Mhm.
know, it does go with you for life. And I would say this, we don't think about that when we think about physical disabilities. We would never take a wheelchair away from a child who couldn't walk, or crutches, or whatever it is. That is the same thing. It's just sometimes not a visible disability. And so parents really have to think about that IEP as that wheelchair or crutch that students need in order to reach their goals and their milestones.
Well, thank you so much again. I want to be mindful of time. Again, can we give our panelists a round of applause, a virtual round of applause? We appreciate you so much. This was so valuable. I mean, I got like 2 whole pages of notes